everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Turf Zoom. I'm Pat Jones here for our friends at Aquatrols, and I'm joined today by the great, the one and only, the most fun man in the business, Andy Jorgensen. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Pat. Thank you.
I'm so glad to hear it. So you know, you and I have been friends for a long time, and we get to hopefully hang out with each other once or twice a year. But that doesn't seem like it's going to happen this year because things have really changed, I guess. So just start out. What's changed for you as this pandemic has dragged on, and what things have you changed as part of your organization and part of your culture that have helped you survive this?
Yeah. So, you know, working for a company with On Top of the World Communities, which is a 55 and over retirement community, a developer, you know, we build houses for a living, and golf is kind of the amenity that drives those home sales. So, you know, when this pandemic hit back in March with the population that we have, that's, you know, one of those that could be at serious risk for this pandemic, the first thing we did is we actually closed down all amenities back in March. So we were shut down for about 6.5 weeks. And fortunately, the company allowed me to spend some extra money, go ahead and go through some cultural practices that we were planning on doing later on in the summer. And we were able to get some stuff done early on in the year that has really been great for not just the golf course, but for our staff as well. And, you know, dealing with the whole pandemic, you know, scheduling employees to come in at different times of the day, having to sanitize equipment in the shop, it's been real interesting, to say the least.
So what have been some silver linings out of it? What are some things that you're like, wow, this is okay?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the good things, like I said, when we were closed, we were able to get some stuff accomplished that we hadn't accomplished in 10 years. So it was nice to have that closure, but you know, everybody kind of questions about course accessories being back out on the golf course. And,
right.
You know, we really enjoy not having bunker rakes around bunkers. It speeds up our mowing practices. It helps us tremendously. And same with water coolers. You know, nobody realizes how long it takes to just fill a water cooler every morning when you've got 4 or 5 that are scattered around the golf course. So there are some definitely good things that have come around due to this. And, you know, hopefully some will stay, but I think some we're going to end up bringing back eventually.
So tell us a little bit more about your company, because it's not a typical golf course operation. You're part of a large development company. Mm-hmm. How does that change your priorities as a superintendent every day a little bit?
Yeah, so, you know, we're a 55 and over community developer, and basically we're here to sell rooftops, and the golf is just the driver to do that. So we're not so much driven by the bottom line and the cash register ringing every day. It's really to provide a product that is going to lure people in to buy our houses and to enjoy their, you know, next chapter in life as they age out in retirement. So big difference between us and, say, a normal operation that's relying on that public play or that daily play to operate. And, you know, this pandemic has really kind of changed some of that as well, but it seems like home building has continued, and, you know, we're just moving forward full speed ahead.
Right. So overall, because you've been involved with the Florida golf community for a long time, and the associations and governance and things like that, how do you think that Florida was impacted by this? Do you think more people came out ahead because of the growth in play, or more people sort of got hit because they lost weddings or big events or whatever? What's your take just from talking to your colleagues around the state?
Yeah, and, you know, it's kind of a mixed bag. You hear a lot of, you know, unfortunately, some stories where guys had to lay off staff for periods of time or reduce hours, you know, or even superintendents themselves being furloughed. Seen a lot of that really with the resort side of the business. If they're not selling hotel rooms, you know, they don't have that revenue coming in. So you're seeing kind of that unfortunately negative side being impacted with those courses. But then you've got the ones that stayed open that, you know, you hear them about being sold out every day and packed every day. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Some were great and have come through it no problem. Some actually put off aerification because they were so busy. They didn't want to lose the rounds and the revenue. And hopefully with those resort courses and some of those ones that had to shut down or had to reduce hours and lost the revenue can bounce back pretty good because, as you know, Florida is driven by tourism, and we need the tourists to come back to kind of help pay the bills.
For sure. You know, what is it? Because I bounced around the country and spent a lot of time down your way. Tell me why the Florida turfgrass culture is different from the other parts of the, because you've been around, you're originally from the Midwest. How does Florida differ from, say, the Northeast culture?
Well, you know, one thing about Florida is you really have about 3 different climates, from South Florida being 12 months out of the year, very tropical, no downtime, no breaks. Central Florida, where I'm at, with a little bit of cooler weather in the winter months, but we don't really ever stop growing up here. And really the Panhandle, which, you know, you want to act more like Georgia, or Alabama, or Mississippi up there with the winter months. And, you know, what really sets Florida apart is when everybody else is slowing down in the winter, all of those members are coming down here and playing golf as snowbirds.
Right.
And it happens to coincide when we're not growing grass, we're not recovering from traffic. And so you kind of get opposite ends of the stick where revenue is high, but they're beating up the golf course in the process. So it takes, you know, some really good management, especially on the traffic side. And if you have days like today where it's been overcast all day with chances of rain, you know, the pathogens popping up, you know, really year round can catch you off guard. So it's definitely different down here compared to up north. But I can tell you the guys up north really put in a lot of hours during the summer months when you see guys posting on Twitter about, you know, being there until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night just to make sure the turf is watered and healthy. Whereas we're leaving at 3:30, 4 o'clock and, you know, everything's all good. So it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off.
Yeah, and you don't have dollar spot either. So
that's right. That's right. But we have nematodes and mole crickets. So
yes, you do. Yes, you do. So go back, because you've led the Florida Association and local chapters as well, and you've always been involved, I think, in the government side of things. How has this event and this change in our world proved the importance of associations? Because I think a lot of us took them for granted, and you know, we'd go to the conference or we go to the shows and you go to chapter meetings occasionally, but all of a sudden we saw a whole new side of what associations can do in terms of laying the groundwork to keep our entire business open. So tell me why associations are so important and hopefully how we can evolve them over the years to come.
Yeah, so a few years ago, you know, we came together really as an industry and developed Florida Turf Day at the Capitol in Tallahassee. And that kind of evolved from Florida Golf Day, where we wanted to have a day to where the turf industry could be represented directly to the lawmakers and the legislators up there, and to where we could really have a voice. And that turned into a good relationship with the lobbying group that we eventually ended up hiring. And that lobbying group has boots on the ground in Tallahassee. So they've really heard everything firsthand coming out of the state capitol and disseminate that information down to us, and then in turn us to the members. But by having that partnership, we were able to really keep golf courses open for play during this entire pandemic. They were providing communication and updates on a daily basis, which we in turn were providing to our membership. And really the communication side of all this, I mean, has increased tenfold during this whole pandemic. And we really couldn't have done it without the association. I mean, we had people that traditionally weren't members of the association reaching out for this information, and we've since turned them into members of the association since they've seen the value that these associations can provide them as a member. So big changes, but I think the key was definitely hiring this lobbying group to have that voice up there on the Hill when we can't be there. Yep.
I think that's a great takeaway for other associations, and I think a lot of them have some kind of a lobbying relationship. But I know a little bit about yours, and it's a tighter relationship, and they really get it, and they're really connected. So, yeah, I mean, this is when the associations really pay for themselves. And you know, we talked a little bit earlier. So we all have to kind of think about how we're going to evolve now in a world where trade shows may not be what they have been in the past. So, you know, I think that's going to be a challenge in Florida and elsewhere around the country to figure out a new and better way to do it. So have you figured that out yet? Do you have some ideas?
I don't think anybody's figured it out yet. I think there's some good effort being made to try to do some webinars and some Zoom education to at least provide some CEUs and some education to people. But, what you're missing is that in-person interaction, that camaraderie amongst people, whether it's at a meeting or a trade show. And, I've said it before, I've never been to a meeting where I haven't learned something. And I think that's true for everybody, regardless of how long they've been in this industry. If you don't go to a meeting and walk away with something new, then I think you're just missing out.
About 15 years ago, giving a speech someplace and looking up, and in the back of the room, Sherwood Moore was sitting there taking notes. He'd been retired for 20 years at that point.
Right.
But that endless quest for knowledge, that curiosity just never stops. So take a step back and think about, you talked about moving forward in a new world. And obviously we're here today, turf zooming. What do companies like Aquatrols mean to this industry? Because they've been around for 70 years and I think they've supported virtually every golf association out there in some way. But what does that mean to you in Florida, and why is that so important?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you see the Aquatrols name, everywhere. They've always been good supporters of the industry and of associations in general. And I think it's really cool that, Aquatrols is kind of evolving. They've added on some new product lines. They've formed a partnership with Redox. And
Right.
I think that, they're able to kind of spread that message very well and help people succeed, in doing so. So we have a great representative down here in Florida for Aquatrols, who's been in the business for many years, several decades, and a real hard worker. And he does a great job communicating not just his product line, but, kind of issues that other guys are seeing and how they've been able to solve it. So, those reps are really that chain of communication between superintendents during this time when the superintendents aren't able to meet one-on-one. Those reps are really kind of helping communicate and spread that knowledge as well. Yeah,
Duncan's a treasure, and I've been fortunate enough. I know over the years I've gotten to know some of their other reps, and they're really good people, and they are first and foremost agronomists. And that's just so important. So what happens next for our industry? What happens with our evolution as a business? What do you think? Do you think that golf is going to become more family driven? Do you think that golf will become more of a business, less club oriented, and more organizations like yours? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, one of the silver linings out of this pandemic has been I've seen a lot more of the younger generation picking up clubs. When they're furloughed or quarantined at home, in other words, they don't have an office to go into. They've had a little bit more free time. And several of my friends, even who have never played golf before, are picking up the game. And, hopefully when we get out of all this, those guys are still playing. They're still sending some revenue into the clubs. But, I think golf in general, hopefully is on an uptick. I think we've seen that definitely here, not just at my facility, but at others as well. But I think the big thing golf is really going to suffer with over the next couple of decades is going to be the lack of students coming out of turf schools filling those roles as guys like me and you retire, in the next 10 years. So, that's going to put a big impact on clubs to try to find, the right person and hire somebody that's competent to do the job. And I think we as industry can do a lot better to try to get, those students and even our staff pushed into some sort of education role to be able to move up amongst our own ranks or even at other facilities to kind of fill those niche roles that we all struggle for.
Great. Talking about students and ways that we can attract more people in the business. What are some things you're doing in Florida to try to get those kids interested in the business?
Fortunately down here in Florida, there's a few high schools that do have some turf programs. So by going around and speaking with those students and encouraging them to continue, up the ladder with some education, or even just offering some summer jobs for them throughout high school to kind of expose them to this industry is really what has been happening and what needs to continue happening. Another thing too is we have couple of great turf schools here in Florida, one of them being the University of Florida. Little difficult to get into, but as an industry, we're creating a roadmap on how these students can maybe start out at a local school while they work on a golf course, get kind of an associate's degree or get some of that, under education started before moving on to a bigger school like University of Florida to finish up a turf degree and then get back out into the business. So
yeah, it's funny because everything old is new again, and that's the way it was back in the 30s, even up into the 50s, where you'd find somebody that had a penchant for greenkeeping and figure out a way to get them to UMass to the 2-year program, or a place like Horry, Georgetown, in the 70s and 80s where they could finish up their education. So, okay, so a few quick thoughts. So you're a social media guy. What's your advice to some of those young people or others about how to use social media wisely as a golf course superintendent?
Yep. One thing is, don't try to be that keyboard warrior. Listen more and type less, could be said. I was the opposite, years ago, and I've kind of evolved now to where I'm kind of lurking in the background. And, the good thing about social media is you do learn quite a bit. It's a great resource to learn and to share some of your knowledge. You just got to do it very wisely, and always remember that whatever's on the internet stays on the internet. You can't take it back. So just be cautious. Really is the key word. And even if you don't think people are going to see your tweet, people see your tweet.
Yeah, it will come back to haunt you. Boy, I know that for sure. So, okay, second quickie. What do you think salespeople can do better in just a few words? What do you think, when we were talking about Duncan earlier, he's obviously the best, but what do you think the average salesperson can do better to be successful in these days?
Yeah, the best sales reps listen to your needs, and they provide the solutions to solve your problems. They're not the ones that are in there looking to make a sale. They're in there looking to make that sale down the road, but they're there to solve your problems as they pop up. And, they've got the knowledge from seeing other facilities. I mean, these sales reps are seeing multiple facilities every day, and, they may see a problem that somebody else has solved, and you're dealing with it, and they can provide that solution. It's not always about the sale. It's about helping the customer.
100%. Great point. Okay, last but not least, what would you hope that golfers can start doing better to help superintendents take care of courses? And we all joke about this. The thing here during the pandemic has been, well, we took the rakes out. It's not like anybody ever used them to rake bunkers anyway. But seriously, what can we do to get golfers to be a little bit better partners to superintendents?
Yeah, and I mean, you always hear about the keep carts on cart path and repair ball marks. But, I think we as superintendents can do a better job at educating our members and our golfers on kind of what's going on with the golf course so that they have a better understanding of some of the battles that we fight. Superintendents tend to kind of just lurk in the background and be unseen. But I think, a little bit better communication, a little bit better knowledge could probably sway a member the other direction. Because quite frankly, a lot of times these members just don't know what we're dealing with and what the problem is. And helping them understand could really gain a lot of respect.
That one of those things that I've always thought was a miscommunication thing is the idea that golfers will pull their carts off the cart path and park on the grass, because that's what you think you're supposed to do. Is you don't want to be blocking anybody's way. And I've always thought, well, that's one of those where if we communicated it right, they'd probably understand. But it's also, they're not being idiots. They're just doing what they think is right. So if we can help to fix that, that would be great. So, well, thank you very much for your time today. And I certainly hope that your season gets better. I hope it's boring. I hope it's not interesting at all, and that you're successful. But I really appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you, Pat. I enjoyed it.
All right. Have a good day, and I hope you all will stick around for more Turf Zoom from Aquatrols.